All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ashley Brackett, and I am a counselor in our University Transfer Center. And hopefully you're at the right workshop. We're gonna be talking about applying to the California State University. So this is for fall 2024 admission. However, if you're here and you're gonna be applying in the future, that's okay too. It's never too early to be on top of things. Let's get started. All right, just a couple little notes to share. Sorry, it's covering my screen. About CSU, I would imagine if you're here, you kind of already have an idea of the CSUs that you want to apply to, but maybe you are still thinking of a couple other schools, backup options, or you're not totally sure. Obviously, CSU is a great option. You have 23 campuses to choose from, all the way from the northern end of California all the way to the southern end, and a lot in between. So it is the largest four-year public university system. And I get students all the time asking, what's best for my major? What's the best school? And I think they all have something to offer. It really just depends on your interests, your personality, where you feel most comfortable, where you want to live, if your major's offered there. So I think every single CSU has something unique to offer. It also employs a lot of people in California, which is great. And they award, of course, being the largest public university, a lot of bachelor's degrees. And a lot of them offer beyond master's degrees for those of you who might be looking at continuing your education. I actually went to UC Santa Barbara for my undergrad for my bachelor's, and then I went to Cal Poly SLO for my master's. So lots of offerings of degrees out there. So you can use the one application that you're going to create an account for today to apply to all 23. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody apply to all 23, but I have had someone do a lot of them. You can start to actually, as of yesterday, applying for fall 2024. There is a fee for each application. It's $70 per application, which is why I don't think anybody's doing all 23. But there is an application fee waiver built in. When you complete the full application, you'll be able to see if you qualify for that. And then if you do, you'll get 4 applications for free. If you are applying to UCs, you'll actually get 4 UC applications for free as well if you qualify for that fee waiver. And they're both built into the system. We are also looking at getting some application fee coupons waivers for those that maybe don't qualify, but you have extenuating circumstances or you need help with maybe one more. We have not got that yet, but that's something that our center is looking. We've been approved. We just need to figure out the process for getting those ordered. So if you don't qualify, make sure you talk to one of us and we'll see what we can do. All right, let's make sure you're eligible, because that is important before you go through all this time and spending money. So hopefully you have already met with a counselor either in the summer or starting the start of this fall semester to just see that you're eligible. And then you're here attending the application workshop. Of course, you'll then work on that application before you submit. No matter what, make sure you have an app, have it reviewed. And we have those scheduled appointments right now just with the transfer center to schedule that application review appointment. They're 30-minute times. So if you have multiple, like a CSU and a UC, make sure you do them separate, or you have a private school, make sure you set those up early on. Eventually we'll open it up to all the counselors. You'll be able to book with, let's say you see someone in EOPS or you see somebody in general counseling normally, you'll be able to schedule with them as well. All applications technically are due by November 30th. However, some do end up extending their deadline, but I would plan to have it in by that deadline. And then you could see at the bottom, we recommend not waiting and doing it before Thanksgiving is kind of always our rule of thumb, because A, you want to enjoy Thanksgiving without having to worry about this and stress about it. B, it gets very busy towards the end of the month, end of November, when everybody's trying to apply, and then there's no appointments with us available. The system bogs down, it crashes. So just have it in your mind, plan to try to get it in by Thanksgiving. Maybe you can even get it done this month. That would be great. And then after your final step, of course, to applying is going to be really that follow-up part where you're checking your email, staying in touch with what we have going on, but also with the university. And we'll get into more detail here. One more. All right. All right, so minimum transfer requirements. So all of this have to, it looks like we have to change that date. Spring 24, all this needs to be completed by spring 24, not spring 23, so ignore that. 2.0 GPA, so CSU transferable GPA is anything 100 level from Hancock. If you've attended other colleges, then you have a counselor help you in checking that GPA. Plus, you'll see when we get into the application, there's a way to check your transferable GPA. So that has to be at a 2.0. 60 transferable units completed, again, by the end of spring 24, not 23. So anything 100 level at Hancock would be towards that. And then at least 30 units of your general education with a C or better. That's usually not hard to do. Most of you have done a lot of general ed following the CSU or IGETC general education, but you do have to have at least 30 units of that, C or better. And then the biggest, most important part is completion of what we call the Golden 4. And actually that could be a C- or better, but I know at Hancock we don't offer minus. But if you took it somewhere else, these can be C- or better. So oral communication, so your speech, your written communication, most of you probably took English 101, or if you did an AP exam. Critical thinking, you know, we have a couple options in English and philosophy and debate there. And then a transfer level math, which is anything 100 level at Hancock. So that is minimum. Of course, to be competitive, you may have to have more depending on your university and major choice. So questions to ask a counselor, but more even to ask yourself, will I be earning an associate degree? And the reason that's important is because the application will ask you to report that information, and it does help or has an effect on admissions for some of the CSUs. So it's important to know if you're getting one. Okay, you're hopefully seeing it now. This is where you can search by major, by community college, by CSU campus to see who, you can do multiple, has a similar associate degree for transfer. So then it'll pull up a list. If you're getting, for example, the history associate degree for transfer at Hancock, these are the schools that have an equivalent major. So even sometimes you'll see this one's Chicano studies, so it's a little different than history, but if you're going into that major there, it aligns. So it'll give you the benefits of the associate degree, which is priority admission. You get a bump in your GPA potentially, might help you get into an impacted program. There's a lot of benefits that come with the what we call the ADT, the associate degree for transfer. So just make sure you check and see, am I on track for one of those? We get a lot of students who think they're getting it because they're getting the liberal arts transfer degrees. Those are not the same thing. So you will only report this, the ADT, in your application if you're getting one of the majors offered by Hancock. And we'll go into that a little bit more. Looking at, you want to check with your counselor, checking with yourself. Have I completed the necessary classes to make me competitive? So remember on the prior screen, I talked about minimum admissions. Now we need to say, okay, are there major classes I need to have done or have had done? Is there certain general ed that must be done for this school to be competitive? Like the graduation requirements, US history, the political science, right? Sometimes that'll make you more competitive at programs, even though it's not required to get in, it might help you. And of course, the units. I kind of mentioned it already, impaction. So it's good to know if your campus or the major or the campus that you're trying to go into is impacted or not. More for your own knowledge, so you know, do I need to do extra things to be more competitive? But also I think it's important to have a variety of campuses. So these are the ones that are all fully impacted, meaning they're going to be a little more competitive to get into campus-wide, right? Like all programs. So you may want to have a campus that's not on that list as a backup option. This down here, you can look by campus, upper division, because you guys are all upper division level, meaning you're going in at junior, or I guess I shouldn't say all of you. You most likely are upper division. You may have some lower divisions out there. And this will tell you if anything is impacted. So Fresno, no campus impaction. So they're admitting at minimum admissions usually. If you go to Sacramento, now you'll see there's a couple majors that are impacted. And then that's when you want to double check with your counselor, double check on their website. What does that mean? Does that mean I have to have a certain GPA? Does that mean I have to have certain major prep classes completed? That's just kind of like a red flag for that. The links, someone asked, can I post the links? They're actually all on our website, and I will try to remember to show you that. But if you go to the UTC website, we have CSU resources. And if you open that, it has Impaction, a link to that. It has a link to the ADT. So it's all on our website. And then I will try to throw it in the comment. All right, so it's always good to know, is there any kind of impaction? All right, now we're going to get into the application process. So for fall, I think I already mentioned it, October 1st, starting yesterday, all the way through November 30th. And then I had said there may be varying deadlines. A lot of them already are showing that they're going to be beyond the November 30th deadline. A lot of campuses are trying to rebuild and increase their enrollment. So they may already have it extended. And that I'm not going to link to it because I don't want to stop share again, but that links to the Cal State the application that we're going to get into. And so you can find the deadlines on that page, and I'll show you that when we get closer. To complete the application, this looks like a lot, but really you just need transcripts because you're going to be entering all your college classes, not high school, just college, unless you're trying to apply as a lower division transfer. So having less than the 60 units, that's the only reason you would need your high school transcripts. Otherwise, any college or university you've attended, any AP scores, any IB, most people don't have that. But anything like that, you'll need those. If you have a social security number, it's nice to put it on there because it helps just kind of link to your FAFSA and those types of things. If you don't, you can leave it blank. You'll want to know your citizenship status because that is an important part of it. And then for that fee waiver, you will need the annual income information. And actually that's wrong. It should be January 1st, 2000. That needs to be updated from last year. But basically, if you're over the age of 24, you will be, actually, I think it's on another slide, but you will be independent. If you're under, you'll be dependent. So parents, you'll need your parents' income unless you're there's a couple other factors, and I'll go over those. You will, if you're not getting the fee waiver, you'll need to pay through PayPal or credit card. And then if you are just doing 4 and you get the fee waiver, you won't need any payment. And then those of you applying to EOP, which I'll go into a little bit, you'll need your parents' employment background, even if you're, older, not living with them. It asks like for the history of your parents' information, and then you will need 2 recommenders and their emails, because then it'll send a link so that you can get those recommendations. Here it is. So dependent versus independent. The years are right on this one. So it is a federally, it's federally regulated. So there's nothing we can really do about where they came up with this age and everything. But if you were born before, here, you're considered independent if you can say yes to any of this. So if you were born before January 1st, 2000, currently active duty or veteran, as of today are married, you now or will have children or dependents that receive more than half of your support between those dates. Someone other than your parent or step-parent has guardianship over you by a court and legal residence at any time since you were 13. Parents were deceased, your foster care ward of the court. And then the last one there, at any time after that date, did your high school emergency shelter, any kind of transitional health, basically if you were homeless or put out. If you cannot say yes to any of that, then you are considered dependent, and you will have to have your parents' income for financial reasons, for the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and for what they'll ask you financially on this application for the fee waiver. If you have individual questions about that, you can always ask us. When you go into the application, you'll go in, you'll select fall 2024, and then click apply. There's also a lot of other resources on this webpage where you can go in and find, look at transfer information, compare campuses. This is what I was talking about. That link goes to right from the homepage, those dates and deadlines. And then you can go in and see if there's extended deadlines. If your program is open, you can go to the help center from here. That's all on the homepage of calstate.edu. If you applied last year or in like a previous year, then you it will actually ask you if you want to pull over any of your information into the, like, it'll pull over what it can. It'll ask you to what you want to pull over. Otherwise, you can start a fresh application if you want to, but this will hopefully prevent you from having to do too many, like having to enter everything all over again. So here's where you can start fresh or copy the data. I did it this morning, just going into the new system, and I copied it over and it pulled over a bunch of my personal information. So that's helpful, not having to redo it. Otherwise, it won't ask you this if you've never created an account. So those of you who have not created an account, then that's where you'll go, and then make sure you use your personal email, not your Hancock. If you used your Hancock, you already created, it's not a big deal. It's just we recommend personal because we know you're going to be checking that usually more often than not. If you have applied before, you can just use that username, password, log in. If you forgot any of those because it was like last year, the year before, you can reset it. Highly, highly recommend you write this down. For everybody has phones, I think these days, put it in your notepad of your phone, because when you come in for an app review, we're going to have you log in, and a lot of students will be like, oh, I saved it on my computer at home. Or you can bring your laptop, computer in, and we can pull it up on there. Otherwise, please write that down so that it makes doing the app reviews much easier. When it first logs you in, you create that initial account. In the extended profile, this is where it's going to be asking what kind of student are you. I would imagine majority of our students will be a first bachelor's degree seeking student. If you are somebody who's getting a second bachelor's, make sure you double check with us or with the university that they are accepting a second bachelor's. A lot of CSUs do not. So most of you will be that first time. And then if you are getting the associate degree for transfer, that's where you'll put it here. If you accidentally put it and then later realize, oh shoot, I am not getting one of those degrees, you can always come back and change it to this one that you're transferring without the associate degree for transfer. And then it will ask you, are you getting, your 60 units, yada, yada. Once you indicate that you are going to get an ADT, it'll ask you from where and what degree you're getting it in. If you're getting two of them, I know that's rare, but it does happen. It will allow you to put a second one in as well. Right. And then after you create your account and profile, like kind of just a couple personal information items, then it will say, pick a program. You'll get to the pick, and I'll go to that in a second. It won't let you move on with the application until you pick at least one. Just remember, you can always go back. Even after you submit one application, you can go back and add another university and major if you want to, up until the deadline. But you got to go through with that one, and then later you can go back in and add. You can see the dates and deadlines, like I said, of who's accepting. For now, fall, everybody should be accepting. It's usually in that springtime that not everybody is. Really important to look at the location, because sometimes if it's an online program, you'll see it's like off campus or extension or extended continuing ed. Remember, those then mean it's probably online or it's at a different campus, and their fees or tuition most likely will be higher. So if you want an on-campus program, make sure you're paying attention to that location. This is what it looks like. I know I'm probably just talking and you're like, I don't understand. Here is the visual. So this is location, right? This would be online. This would be showing that it's on the main campus. So pay attention to that. This is where you can search for program if you want to narrow it down to try to get, quicker, get it easier to what you're looking for. And then this, of course, would be fall 2024. And then it'll even show you the deadline over on this side. And then you just click, check the one you want, and then it'll add it. And then, like I said, you can go back and keep adding to that. And I know there's some questions popping in the chat, some private ones, and I'll make sure I address those. And then this is if you want to add a program, not by university, but by major, like you just want to search here, for example, by sociology, and then it'll start pulling up in alphabetical order, usually all the universities for that offer that major. That's like if you're like, well, I don't know where I want to apply. And then this is a really good example, because we all, of course, have that new sociology at Hancock option. Those of you applying into that, there's where it is. So you can search by major, and then you want the one at Allan Hancock College. So make sure you're selecting the right one if that's the one you want. Earning an ADT, I kind of already went over this. This is a zoomed in option here. That's where you'll put the transferring with an associate degree for transfer, and then you'll select Hancock. And then this is a perfect area to know, am I getting an ADT? Because if your major doesn't come up on this list, then you're not getting it, right? Because Hancock only offers 28 of these. So if you're a nursing student and you're like, oh, I think I'm getting this, I'm getting that liberal arts transfer degree. If you don't see nursing pop up on here, then we don't offer a nursing one. Then you're not getting an ADT. It probably means you're just getting a regular associate degree. So that's a really good way to just see, if you're not sure if you're getting one or not. With the ADT, part of it, I told you there's benefits that come to it. Part of that is that it has to be verified to your CSU campuses that you're on track for this ADT degree. That will happen through our admissions office. You do have to apply. So at the beginning of January, if you're finishing in spring, in January, you want to go in and meet with a counselor or do a drop-in or whatever, and have the counselor initiate applying for that associate degree for you, because then it'll go to our admissions office and they'll send that verification over to your CSUs by the deadline, because it'll be an earlier deadline. I think it's in March, I believe, for fall admission. And then they'll make sure they say, yep, so-and-so is on track to get the associate degree in math. And then that way you can get those benefits or perks that come with the associate degree. So the deadline to apply for degrees in the spring is later in the semester, but I recommend if you're an ADT student, you do it right away so you don't forget and you get that verification. So you can do it up until the deadline though, to get the degree. And if you applied this semester, like you're finishing this semester, then the verification should happen for you. And this is just showing how you would add that second one. So you will have to put your H number. Most people don't know their CCC ID, and that's okay. You can leave it blank. If you know it, great, put it there. But these are the only required areas. And then anticipation degree deadline date would be May 2024 for those of you getting it in the spring. I had a quick question that I can answer really quick. So the question is, if you're going to be doing the on-the-spot admissions, do you select CI as well, or just the other schools? Check with CI. I don't know if they still will want you to put in an application and pay for it, right? You probably may have to, or they may give you like a fee waiver or something. So just double check with them on that.
Sorry to interrupt, but to answer that question about the Channel Islands one,
Okay.
so we've actually been working closely with Brittany Hong, who comes to campus as a person that does actual on-the-spot admissions. And what she'll do is she'll take a look at your transcript once it's printed out and stuff, take it to her, she'll review it, she'll let you know if you get on-the-spot admissions then and there. When you do get admitted, you do have 5 days to submit your CSU application for Channel Islands specifically. So if you're working on any other schools, you can hold off before you submit. But for Channel Islands, they do want it 5 days within that acceptance. And then on that 5th business day, she'll go in and personally offer you the conditional admissions on there. And it would still be the same process. If you qualify for the waiver, you'll get it through the waiver for free. If you don't qualify for the waiver, you do have to pay those $70 for the application fee.
Thanks, Jen. That's right. Jen got on-the-spot admissions. So thank you for that information. Correct. The question is, if you're graduating with a liberal arts degree, like this one, for example, math and science, but we have 3 of them, that is not an ADT. Those liberal arts degrees are not the associate degree for transfer. Good questions. I know there was a couple other ones in there, and I will make sure I get to them. I don't know if people joined us since I said it, but if you haven't sent your H number, make sure you send it to myself or Jen. You may see this ADT warning pop up, and don't be alarmed. It just means you may have selected a CSU that does not have an equivalent. Remember how I showed you on that search page? It'll pull up, what degrees the universities have similar to our associate degree for transfer. If it is not equivalent, it will give you this, just so you know, it's not similar, FYI, and then you can just say, I've read it and I want to continue. If this means you're like, oh, wait, I don't want to apply there if it's not aligned, then you can go back and, take that university off of your list. It doesn't mean It doesn't have to be aligned, right? You just won't get the benefits and perks that come with the ADT if it's not an aligned program. But a lot of students will do that, right? They'll be applying to their first choice, Long Beach, let's say, that accepts it, but Poly doesn't accept it. You can still apply to Poly even though they don't accept it as a similar or equivalent degree. So it's just a warning to an FYI more than anything. All right. Those of you who are doing the ADT and it will be getting verified on that check status, because you'll have this at the top of your application. Check status is where you can go in and see if it's, I know you cannot see this, but it will let you know if it's been verified or if it's pending. By that time, a lot of times you can just check in with our admissions office if you have questions, or you'll know that it got sent to your CSU because it'll check it off your list of things to do. But this is a place that supposedly you're supposed to be able to see the status. I don't know that anybody ever, usually by then they're not even checking, they already know, but you can check that on there. And then citizenship, super important on this page for our AB 540 students. Make sure you select in that. So it'll say your country of citizenship. Make sure you put that in there. And then if you're AB 540, make sure you select none. The best describes your US citizenship and then what year you moved here, but still claim California residency. If you do not claim California residency, you're going to get charged out of state fees. And we want to make sure you're charged the California rate. And you live in California, so this is your residency. And then you could say, no, I haven't lived here since birth, but here's when I moved here. So that's important just for our AB 540 students. Another kind of warning that will pop up is in the income information when you're putting in dependent versus independent, the household size requirement. If you say that you're dependent, it's expecting you to put at least 2 in, right? If you're a dependent and there's somebody else with you or that you're taking care of, if you put 1, it's going to pull up and say, wait, something's off here. You can be independent and it's just reporting you by yourself. And then in the income, it'll ask you for taxable and untaxable income. A lot of times students will accidentally put their, like, let's say your taxed income is $35,000 a year. That's what you make wherever you work. And then they'll see that untaxable income a second time and they'll just repeat what they put. Well, that's doubling your income, right? If you truly don't have untaxed income, which a lot of people don't, it's very unique for your parents maybe to have it or you to have it, you'll put 0 there. Otherwise, you're doubling your income and you may not qualify for a fee waiver just because you accidentally did that. So it will, if it sees it looks like you doubled it, it will just say, are you sure that that's your untaxed income? And there's a link you can click in for more information to see what would be included in untaxed income. And all of this, oops, go back, and that there is the instructions for the application on the homepage of the application, like before you log in. And that, I mean, if you really want to, you can go through and it answers all. It's basically everything I'm going over in more detail. So if you ever have a question, you can always go to that. Once you get this far, then you'll be starting to add your colleges. And one of the questions that we'll ask is, this is more for residency, for them to check residency. Most of you I know will have the in-state tuition, Hancock, right? But if you did go to a college outside of California, then it'll want to know what fees, what status of tuition were you paying? Were you out of state or were you in state, or maybe it doesn't even apply if it was like a private school. And then in your dates of attendance, you'll put those in, and then there'll be a box to check if you're still attending. If you're still going to be going through Hancock through the spring, you'll put your first starting. And if you started in high school, make sure that you start from the classes you first took with us during dual enrollment or college now or whatever. So this is the dashboards. This is what I was talking about. You'll have these 4 up at the top. Check status is where that ADT status and the status of your application and EOP application, that's where it will all be housed. And then you'll have the 4 quadrants to work through. And this is where you can go back and keep adding new programs. If you do it just the one university at the beginning, and then you decide you want to add anything, like, or maybe you're waiting to see if you get the fee waiver, and then you're going to add some more programs. Most important part, I would say, of your application is entering coursework. That's going to be the bulk of your time that you're going to spend on this. So you will enter all colleges and universities attended. So you'll add them, right? Hancock, I attended from fall 21 to now. You'll include international non-accredited schools here, but you will not enter any coursework if it was international. Otherwise, you'll enter all college coursework. Even if you want to forget about it, you didn't like the record that you have, you were at a different time in your life. If you attended a college, you have to add it. They will find out, and we don't want that to come back and bite you. So enter everything that you've ever attended. When entering grades, and we'll go over this even more, I know when you start working on it, it'll make a little more sense. Repeats, if you did repeat a class, let's say you took Psych 101, you got an F, and then you later took it and got a B, in that F grade, you'll put as RP, so it doesn't filter into your GPA. If you processed any academic renewals, you'll put AR in place of that D or F. If you're curious about doing academic renewal, talk to one of us, talk to a counselor about doing that process right away. If you got a withdrawal, put W. If you did EW, put EW. If you took non-transferable coursework like 300 or 500 level, enter everything. Whether it transfers or not, you want them to see this is what my transcript looks like. So when you send a transcript over, because they will ask for it eventually, it will match your application. If you're currently repeating a course, let's say you got a D over summer, you're in it now, you will have to report the D for now. And then when your grades finalize this semester and you do your update in January, because you'll go back in and update your grades from fall, then you can show, okay, now I repeated it. Visually, this is what it's going to look like. So you'll add that first semester that you attended, fall 15, fall 21, whatever it was. Your status, basically like your first year at Hancock will be freshman. And then if you, the second year will be sophomore. And if you stayed with us beyond that, everything else will be sophomore. You're never a junior at the community college. So kind of think of it as 0 to 30 or 0 to 29 is freshman, and then 30 to 60 and beyond at the community college would be sophomore. So you'll put the status. If you've already taken it, you'll select completed, and that will allow you to put a grade in. You'll start typing the class, and then it'll populate where you can do a drop-down menu and add. Try not to manually add a class unless you have to. If it's a 100 level, it should be populating, and then you can select it. It'll do most of the work for you, so you don't have to type everything in. You will have to go in and pick a subject for each one. If you can't find something that fits, just get the closest to it. It's not a huge deal if that's not right on. And then if the credits haven't come through for some reason, which they should if you populated it right, 4, this is just means 4.00. If it's a unit, it'd be 4.50. And then you'll put your grade here, tab over, it'll pull the grade here. And then if it didn't check box it for you, which it should if it's 100 level, you can check that for any 100 level. And that's how it's going to tally your transfer units and your GPA. Special topics is an option if you're having a really hard time finding a subject that matches. So you just hit the add course, add as many for that fall, save, and then it will ask you, I thought it was going to pull up here, but maybe it's not. That's okay. It'll say, okay, great, good job. And then now you can say add new term, and then you'll add the spring and the fall. Make sure you don't add everything into one semester. You need to show, that they were taken in different semesters. You can add winter, you can add summer, all of them. And so you'll basically verbatim add your transcript in there. In the part of this section, so you'll add the colleges attended, you will add your high school that you attended and when you graduated, but you won't have to put coursework unless you're lower division. And then you'll get to the standardized tests. And this is where you can do the drop down, if you took an AP English or history, and then it'll ask you when you took that exam, roundabout date should be fine. And then you can save it and add another. If you aren't adding any, it'll have that option where you can say, no, I don't have any, and check box that area. When once you've entered everything here, you can go here, like save your transcript, and it will, up at the top right corner, you'll see when you get in there, there's a calculate my transfer GPA or my GPA. That's going to pull in everything you check box. Remember, as long as you checked it as transferable, so double check that all your 100 level are checked, it will calculate your units and your GPA. This is really good to know, so you know what GPA they're going off of, and you may want to jot it down because you may have to enter your GPA anywhere else where it may ask. And remember, only 100 level is going to be transfer. Or let's say you took classes at Santa Barbara City or Cuesta. This is how it can pull everything together and tell you what your transfer GPA is. So I always recommend checking that and just make sure that way if there's any errors, you can catch it there. You can continue to edit your transcripts or preview and then go back and edit. It's okay if you say yes and save. You can always go back and edit up until you submit. Once you submit your application, then there's no changing your coursework. So you can continue to do that and make all the changes you need to. In general, the next section is checking for that. Remember, I told you really important minimum admission, what we call your golden 4, your speech, your English, your critical thinking, and your transfer level math. Once you've entered all of your coursework, this usually will automatically pull it in, but you can double check, verify, right, that everything's right. If not, you can do the drop down menu and pick the class that would be used for that. If you took multiple classes, let's say you did Speech 101 and 102, or you did 2 math classes, it doesn't matter which one you put as long as you have one there. The grade doesn't matter. Students will be like, should I put the best grade? It doesn't really matter for that. There is the opt-out option. This is super rare occurrence, but if you're in a high unit major that doesn't require critical thinking, like in engineering, for example, and you weren't planning to take it, you can opt out. And if you're lower division transfer and it only requires your speech and your math, or no, I forget what lower division, there's only 2 of them that are required, then you can opt out for that option too. Okay, let me see if there's a couple questions. Why is the screen popping up when I'm trying to sign up for the 2+2? I don't know. I'll have to look at that individually, but it should have that as an option, the Hancock sociology program, if that's what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you can do the Cal Poly on-campus program. If you dropped a class and it's showing as a W on your record, you would put a W there. If you dropped it before the deadline and it's not even showing up, then you don't put anything. Is the AP option for what we did, sorry, it's covered, in high school or now in college? It would be high school. And it's only if you took the AP exam, right? If you took the advanced placement exam, that would be the only time you put it. If you just took AP classes but never took the exam, you're not reporting any of that here. Hopefully I answered your question. So that'll be your academic history area, and then your supporting information, that's where EOP is going to be located. If you're interested in applying to EOP, there is supplemental information that you'd have to put there. And if you're not, you can just say, no, I'm not interested, and it'll check it off. Who is eligible for EOP? This is a little outdated, but it's kind of an example. Of course, these numbers have probably gone up for max income, but there'll be new guidelines we can look up for you if you need to. So it is income based, but it's basically for historically low income and educationally disadvantaged undergraduate students, which essentially means they're looking at income based on your family size and those students who are the first to go to college. And like if your parents did not go to college, they're going to consider you first generation. It's extra support. If you're in EOPS here at Hancock, definitely apply. If you never applied for EOPS, but you're like, that sounds like something I would qualify for, now would be the time to apply. They'll ask you some questions too about your goals, your academic, history. And so they do want to see that you have potential and, you're motivated. And then it is only open to California residents or those who apply or qualify for AB 540. So if you have more questions about this, we can answer individually, but that'll be in that little 3rd quadrant if you want to apply for the EOP. Channel Islands, unfortunately, and Dominguez Hills do not accept transfer students into their EOP programs. Otherwise, the rest of them, to my knowledge, do. And then there's the EOP portion technically isn't due at the same time always as the CSU application, although you see the exceptions there. Most of them, you can continue to do that EOP part or get your recommendations in up until January 15th. Bakersfield, Chico, Fresno, Sac, and San Jose, assuming it's the same, and I believe it is this year, you'll have to have that EOP in at the same time that you do your Cal State application. So you can, on that same Cal State application website, when you look at the dates and deadlines, you can look just by EOP if you have questions about that. So, and it is only fall admissions, which you guys are all in, so you're good. meaning once you get transfer, a lot of them you can't apply after the fact. So do it now, even if you're not sure, doesn't hurt to apply. If you are a veteran, there will be a section for you. You'll have answered, right? Yes, I'm a veteran in the earlier parts. And then it will want you to upload a copy of your DD 214 and transcript, add in the supporting, the fourth quadrant, you'll add in that supporting documentation. If you are getting credit for any kind of military service, you can add it into you should add it into the transcript entry, like you could put it in your very first semester. And then that way you'll get those units counted only if you need it towards the 60 minimum units. If you have the minimum units with Hancock stuff, don't worry about that part. But if you need it, then we want to make sure you're entering it as such. Campus specific questions. So this is that fourth quadrant. It's going to only come up if you're applying to a campus that wants additional information, or maybe they want you to upload documents or like a transcript, or they want to ask you specific questions about your program, GPA, stuff like that. That's where it will be housed. If it automatically checks green, it means that any universities you added they're not asking for anything additional. A lot of times they'll give you some more information about their program here as well. So you just want to make sure this is what it will look like. And it may have it up here where you would, if it wants a recommendation, you click there. If there's questions, if it requires anything, just make sure you go through. It won't green check until you complete all of this area. And a lot of times this one doesn't have it, but sometimes they'll have like information and links to the program where you'll be able to go read more about it, or maybe it talks about impaction and what's required. Up at the top where you would like sign out, or if you're done with the application, if you click on your name, it will have a drop down menu, and this is where you can go back to that extended profile in case you need to change. This happens mostly with students who accidentally put an ADT and they need to go back and take it off, or they don't realize they're getting an ADT and didn't add it. You can go into your extended profile and change that. Or let's say you accidentally put that you're going to be a lower division student. You're like, whoops, I'm actually going to be upper division, have more than 60 units. You can go back there and make any changes. However, once you submit your application, that part cannot be changed. So make sure, again, you're having it checked over before you submit anything. This is what the submit application portion looks like. So you can click on it anytime. You won't submit until you actually go in. This is it'll be blue when it's ready, and then you can hit submit. You can do one at a time or multiple. But this is what that submit application portion looks like, just so you can see, okay, which campuses am I applying to? Do I want to remove any? Oh, you know what? I realized, I want this one to be the on campus, not the online, whatever. You can make changes here. Total fees will pop up, but you can also check your fee waiver status here. So let me show you more about that. So if you click on here, if you're eligible, it'll look like this. It'll say, great, you have 4 of 4 remaining. And then if you use one, it'll say you have 3 of 4 remaining. If you're not eligible, it'll come up like this. And then you can click more for more information. If you feel like that's an error and you should have the fee waiver, there is an appeal, but you have to do that through each individual campus. And I recommend doing that very early because you'll have to pay the fee unless you get it worked out with them and then submit it, when time comes. So that's all here under the submit application. So once you fill out your whole application, or at least the financial aid financial section, then you should be able to come here, click and see if you're getting, because that may determine, right, if you're going to do 4 or 1 or 2. And then if you are a current EOPS member, or you ever have been a part of EOPS, you should automatically be getting the 4 for free. If you're having any issues with that, visit your EOPS office here and find out. So this is what it will look like, right? And the fee waiver will pull it out, and then you have no fees. And so it'll have you double check that that's the selected program. And then this is what it will look like if you do have to pay, or let's say you got the 4 for free, but you want to pay for 1 on your own. Then you can do it, like I said, through e-check, PayPal, or credit card. And I already talked about this. If you are deemed not eligible, but you think you should, click on the link, and then there are waivers. But like I said, through individual campuses at that point. Here's a better view of the check status page. So if you reported an ADT, right, you'll see that pending verification, or it'll show verified once it's been verified. And then here you can see if you're in progress, you're working on an application. Once you've submitted, it will show if it's been submitted. I had a student, not very often, but a few times it's happened where they thought they submitted their applications. January rolled around, they're like, I haven't heard from anybody. They never hit submit. So double check after you submit that this is coming through as that it is in, and you know the college has received it. And this is where you can come back and have that proof. It's not showing here, but if you were applying for EOP, that would also be on this page, and it would show when your recommenders have submitted their recommendation. So it's nice, and you can give them a nudge if you're waiting, that deadline's coming up, but do give them enough time. It's nice to give them at least a month notice. I know I like to have that much time if I'm going to be a recommender for somebody. Really important reminders. Application review. So when you go in to schedule an appointment with a counselor online into your portal, now there'll be an option. Like I said, right now it's just for myself and Maria because we're the transfer center. You can do that app review appointment, but eventually it'll open up when we get busier to everybody, and then you can schedule that review. So make sure you do that early on. Email is so important. After you apply, you're going to be getting emails from the universities. Super important to read through it. It's giving you important information. I can't tell you how many times January rolls around and students are like, I don't know what to do. And then we go into their emails. I'm like, it has right here your student ID number. It has your next steps. You need to send transcripts. Check those emails. Create those portals, because you'll probably create a portal for most of the universities. And that's where you'll be logging in to look at your to-do list. We will be helping out in January with those next steps. And we'll have workshops like this just for next steps and updating your apps. So come to those. But you'll start getting stuff in December even. So just make sure you're checking all of that. Keep all your information together. I know not a lot's printed anymore, but if you do, whether it's on your phone, usernames and passwords, when you create those portals, you'll have a username and password for each one. Write them down. That way, when you come into an appointment to ask us questions, you can easily log into those portals and show us what you need to show us. Make sure you're following the next steps on our website. I'll show you that in just a second. Just keep copies of everything, no dates and deadlines. If you're applying to multiple campuses, it is going to be a lot to keep track of, but it's so important that you stay on top of it, because if you miss deadlines and that's the reason you don't get admitted to a campus, that's a super bummer just because you missed a deadline. And a lot of them will likely be asking you to send transcripts in January, not all of them. So only if they ask you to send transcripts, make sure that you're doing that early and you're not waiting. A lot of them you can look ahead. If you go to their websites, it'll have the next steps. If they send you that confirmation email, chances are it says, here, is a link to your next steps, and you'll be able to see what the deadlines are going to be coming up. Before we go to questions, really quick too, timeline. Well, here, a couple things on here. Workshops and events, things coming up. Here's where you can go in and schedule for that app review, schedule an appointment with one of us. And then down here is steps to fall admissions. Over here, this is a great timeline. Keep checking back and saying, okay, I'm in October. Am I doing all the things? I'm in November now. Is there anything I need to do? Is there anything I'm missing? This takes you all the way through when you've been admitted. And most of the decisions will come out between March and April. Some of them, some of you are doing the on-the-spot admissions with Channel Islands. You're finding out now. Some of them may even let you know in January, February. All of the CSUs, you have to let them know by May 1st what your decision is. If you're applying to UCs, that's usually June 1st. But this is a really great keep you on track timeline. Somebody asked about links. Here is where you can go into CSU information. This has impacted majors. That's the one I went to, the impacted majors. And this one goes to that ADT, looking at the similar degrees for ADTs. Plus, there's a whole bunch of other links in here that you can look at too. UC has their own set in here as well. Those are going to be some really good resources that you're going to want to check out. And then reps. If you want to talk to any university reps, You can link here to any CSU or UC reps, but of course, transfer day, I don't know if we have it loaded into our events yet, but that'll be coming up at the end of October. October 31st is going to be our university transfer day. We don't have it here yet, but we will start advertising soon. That's when all the reps will be here on our campus, or most of them, and you can go around and talk to them out in the student center. It's 10:30 to 1 o'clock, I want to say, that day. All right. Questions?
Ashley, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
All right. So again, you know how the EOP application is a different deadline, but does the student have to unclick and indicate that they're not interested to be able to submit? Because it doesn't that portion have to be completed? If I remember correctly.
I think there's an option there that says I'm interested, but I'll fill this out later.
Okay, yeah, I think so. That's what I meant.
You have to remember to go back and fill it out. That's the thing, because it will green check and it'll make it look like your application is done. But yes, that's the option you would select if you're going to do it later.
All right, great. And the other question I had regarding AP scores again, I know in the past we would have students put that also on their first semester. Are we still doing that or not?
That's only, and I think that might have changed this year, so we need to look when we start putting them in. That's only if you need to use it for the Golden 4, or you need to use it for, well, no, unit wise it'll capture them, but if you need to pull it into the Golden 4, that's usually why we would enter into the first semester.
Right, I think because when you were checking the Golden 4, it gave you an example as to how to enter it.
Yeah, I had done that on mine. That was my example. I had entered my AP into my first semester, and then it was there as a drop-down option.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And then someone had asked me about, I believe, yes, if you're in the extended foster care system, that should, but we can verify that. We might want to double check. That should count towards independent status as well. This is where you can go in and look at the application dates and deadlines. So you would scroll down, choose if you're wanting to go upper or lower division for fall, and then if you're a special population, you can check that. Otherwise, submit, and it's going to give you who's open, and then there may be, like a notice if there's any kind of unique situations, and that would be there.